The air crackled with tension as I stepped onto my front porch, coffee mug in hand, only to freeze mid-sip. There, hammered into my own fence, was a gleaming metal sign. No trespassing Pinewood, HOA jurisdiction. Beneath it, in crisp black letters, was the name Eleanor Voss, HOA president. My blood boiled. This was my land every square inch paid for, mowed, and loved for over a decade. Yet here was Eleanor, the self-crowned queen of the neighborhood, staking claim to my property like some suburban conquistador. I ripped the sign down, the metal screeching against the wood, and stormed across the street to her pristine colonial-style house. Before I could knock, the door swung open, and there she stood, sunglasses perched indoors, a clipboard clutched like a scepter. "You're in violation, Daniel," she snapped, pointing a manicured nail at me. "That side yard is HOA green space now." I laughed, a sharp, disbelieving sound. "Eleanor, I'm not in your HOA. This is my land, deeded since 2008. Her smirk was venomous. "We'll see about that," she said, slamming the door in my face. That was the moment I knew this wasn't just a neighborly spat. This was war. My name's Daniel Harper, and I've lived on the quiet edge of Pinewood Estates for 12 years. My modest ranch house sits just outside the HOA's iron grip, a fact I've always cherished. The neighborhood was peaceful, filled with dog walkers and kids on bikes, until Eleanor Voss moved in 3 years ago. She wasn't elected HOA president. She declared herself one after organizing a single chili cook-off. From then on, she ruled like a dictator in yoga pants, enforcing rules about mailbox colors, lawn heights, and even the acceptable shade of mulch. Her house, a hulking McMansion with a pool and a sunroom, loomed across the street from mine, its manicured perfection a silent judgment on anyone who dared to live differently. I kept my distance, happy to mow my lawn and grill burgers without her approval. But that sign on my fence changed everything. The next morning, I found another sign, this one chained to a tree stump on the far side of my yard. Same message, same HOA seal, same Eleanor Voss signature. I was livid but curious. Why was she so obsessed with my land? I dug through my files, pulling out my deed, the original survey, and closing documents from when I bought the house. Everything confirmed what I already knew. My property line was exactly where I thought it was. But as I studied the maps, something else caught my eye. Eleanor's backyard, her pool deck, her sunroom, her precious rose garden looked suspiciously close to my boundary. Too close. I needed proof, and I knew just how to get it. I hadn't touched my drone in years, not since I used it to inspect a friend's roof. Dusting it off, I sent it skyward, the hum of its propellers cutting through the morning quiet. From my phone, I watched the live feed as the drone soared over my roof and tilted toward the property line. My heart stopped. Eleanor's sunroom wasn't just close to my land, it was on it. A full 7 feet of her house, from the foundation to the glass walls, sprawled across my property. Her pool deck and a chunk of her garden were also mine, legally and undeniably. I landed the drone and sat in my backyard, staring at the footage. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was theft, and Eleanor had the gall to accuse me of trespassing. I printed the drone's screenshots, grabbed my deed, and marched to her house. She met me on her lawn, already armed with her phone. "I'm calling security, Daniel. You're harassing me," she shrieked. I held up the survey. "Your house is on my land, Eleanor. 7 feet of it." She laughed, a high, brittle sound. "You're delusional. This is my property, and you're just jealous of my success." She crumpled the papers I handed her and tossed them into her rose bushes. "Fake," she spat, then turned and strode back inside. That night, I couldn't sleep. Questions swirled. Was I liable for her house being on my land? Could she sue me? What if someone tripped on her pool deck and blamed me? I needed answers, and I needed them fast. The next day, I called a real estate attorney named Rachel Torres. She reviewed my documents and drone footage over coffee, her eyes lighting up. "Oh, this is a slam dunk," she said, grinning. "Not only is she encroaching, but she's part of an HOA, which makes this their mess too. We'll start with a professional survey." If it confirms what we suspect, we'll hit her with a cease and desist. If she doesn't comply, we go for a quiet title action. I nodded, feeling a spark of hope. Rachel was sharp, and she was on my side. A week later, the surveyor arrived, a wiry man named Carl, with a truck full of high-tech gear. He and his team set up GPS units, ground-penetrating radar, and a drone of their own. Eleanor watched from her porch, sipping iced tea and glaring like a hawk. Carl found the original boundary markers buried under years of dirt, confirming my fence was perfectly placed. Then he moved to Eleanor's side. The results were undeniable. Her sunroom, pool deck, and garden extended 7 feet into my property. Carl showed me a digital map, the red line of my boundary slicing through her backyard like a guillotine. I felt vindicated, but braced for the fight ahead. Eleanor didn't take it well. As Carl's team packed up, she charged across the lawn, knocking over a tripod and screaming, "Get your spy gadgets off my land." Carl, unfazed, replied, "Ma'am, we're not on your land. That's the problem." She grabbed a garden hose and threatened to spray us, her face red with fury. I pulled out my phone and recorded the whole meltdown. By evening, I'd posted the video to a local Facebook group titled Pinewood Drama. Within hours, it had thousands of views. Comments poured in, dubbing her Empress Eleanor and turning her hose-waving tantrum into memes. I wasn't aiming to humiliate her, but I wasn't sorry either. She'd bullied the neighborhood for years, and now the tables had turned. Rachel sent a cease and desist letter to the HOA, detailing the encroachment with survey data, photos, and my drone footage. She warned that failure to address the issue would lead to a lawsuit. The HOA responded quickly, sending a nervous board member named Greg to my porch. He admitted they'd never properly checked Eleanor's property line when her house was built. "She's persuasive," he said, rubbing his neck. I shrugged. Persuasive doesn't make her right. Greg asked what I wanted money a buyout. I told him I just wanted my land back and Eleanor's signs gone. He promised to try, but I wasn't holding my breath. Eleanor, predictably, escalated. The next morning, I found a dozen HOA violation notices taped to my gate, citing everything from unapproved fence paint to excessive dandelion growth. I didn't even have dandelions. She'd clearly spent hours fabricating the list, each notice signed with her flourishing signature. I filmed them all, posting a new video titled Eleanor's Fake Fines. It went viral, shared across the county. Strangers emailed me their own HOA horror stories, and one even offered to testify against Eleanor in court. Her reign of terror was unraveling. Then came a twist. A quiet man named Paul, the HOA's secretary, approached me one evening. He looked exhausted, like he'd been carrying a secret too long. "Eleanor's been running this place like a mob boss," he whispered, handing me a folder. Inside were old HOA minutes, including a memo from years ago warning that Eleanor's house might encroach on my land. The board had ignored it, dazzled by her promises of neighborhood prestige. This was dynamite proof of negligence. Rachel was thrilled. "This isn't just encroachment," she said. "It's fraud." Armed with Paul's documents, Rachel filed a quiet title action. The court date was set, and the summons landed at the HOA's doorstep. Eleanor's antics slowed. She stopped her morning dog walks, and her signs vanished, but the damage was done. Her reputation was toast. Kids in the neighborhood started selling Empress Eleanor t-shirts, and someone spray-painted Property Line Queen on a stop sign near her house. I didn't encourage it, but I didn't cry over it either. The courtroom was stark, the air heavy with anticipation. I sat beside Rachel, my folder of evidence ready. Eleanor arrived late, her leopard print blazer clashing with the room's muted tones. Her lawyer, a young man who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else, argued that Eleanor had a good faith belief the land was hers. Rachel dismantled him, presenting the survey, drone footage, Paul's memo, and my videos. When she played Eleanor's hose-waving meltdown, the judge sighed, rubbing his temples. Eleanor tried to claim the video was edited, but the judge silenced her with a wave. "Do you have a survey contradicting this?" he asked. Her lawyer stared at the floor. "Case closed." The judge ruled in my favor, declaring Eleanor's house in violation and the HOA negligent. I was awarded damages for legal fees, stress, and property misuse, plus a restraining order against Eleanor. The HOA offered to buy the encroached land at a laughable price, but I declined. Instead, I built a 7-foot cedar fence, painted forest green, right along the surveyed line. It cut through Eleanor's pool deck and garden, a wooden rebuke to her arrogance. On my side, I hung a sign, "Boundary secured. Trespassers owe rent." Eleanor stared at it from her porch, silent for once. The fence became a local legend. Neighbors snapped photos, kids called it Eleanor's wall, and I leaned into the absurdity. I listed the 7-foot strip as a premium backyard experience on a rental site, charging $59 a night to grill burgers beside Eleanor's now-divided sunroom. It booked solid, covering my legal costs in weeks. One couple even got engaged there, toasting to boundary victories. Eleanor was voted out of the HOA in a landslide, replaced by Paul, who vowed transparency. The local news ran a follow-up story. HOA tyrant's house built on neighbor's land. Now she's fenced out. Months later, a real estate agent contacted me. Eleanor couldn't sell her house, buyers fled after hearing about the lawsuit. She offered to sell it to me at a discount. I passed. I didn't want her house. I wanted my peace. The day she moved out, I watched from my porch as movers loaded her leopard print pillows into a truck. She glanced at me, her all together. I just raised my coffee mug and walked inside. Life settled back to normal. I turned the reclaimed land into a garden, planting zucchini, bell peppers, and sunflowers that towered along the fence. On a whim, I repainted one of Eleanor's old signs to read, "Welcome home. Stay on your side." It hung by the garden gate, a quiet joke for anyone who got it. The neighborhood was quieter without Eleanor, the HOA humbler under Paul's lead. Sometimes I'd walk my property line, coffee in hand, watching the sunflowers sway. The green fence stood tall, a reminder that justice doesn't always roar, it builds, it grows, it blooms. And when you mess with someone's land, you'd better know where the line is, because some roots run deeper than you think. If you were the one in this story, how would you react? Would you stand up and fight back, or accept the unreasonable pressure and control from the HOA? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this video with more people. Your small action gives us the motivation to keep bringing you more intense and engaging stories. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.